Asteroids game. Hope you've been enjoying this. I've been having fun putting these together. In this video, we're going to be looking at adding in scoring when we hit the asteroids and possibly getting into some lives here. So currently we have it set up where we can fly around, we can shoot the asteroid, and when we shoot the asteroid it breaks into two smaller ones, which then go flying off. And then if we hit the smaller ones, they'll break into smaller pieces yet. There we go, got some small ones over there, and then when we hit those they go away. So every time we hit these we want to score some points. So probably just score a few points for a large one because they're pretty easy to hit. Score maybe a little bit more points for a medium, and then the highest amount of points for the small ones. Okay, that's our plan. So let's go into our player script here, our spaceship script I should say. So let's add a few new variables here, and this can be private because it's going to be score, so we'll say private, and we'll just do an integer because we're going to do whole points, we don't need decimals, and we'll just call this score. Alright, and then we'll go ahead and make sure that in the start function here we set score equal to 0, so we don't start with any points. Alright, so that's our score. Matter of fact, I'm going to change this to public for right now just so we can see it in the inspector. Later on when we actually put this out in the UI, we'll make it private because we don't need people going in and changing their score through the inspector. So we'll make it public for now just so we can watch it in the inspector. Alright, so score will be 0. Alright, now at what point do we have some points scored? Well, we were saying whenever we have a bullet hit an asteroid, we want to update our score. Okay, so the score lives in the spaceship control script. The event's going to be triggered by a bullet hitting an asteroid, and that code is in the asteroid script. So we need the asteroid script when an asteroid is hit by a bullet to talk to our player script and update that score. So first of all, let's go back to our asteroid script where we know we've been hit by a bullet. Okay, that's in the onTrigger enter 2D function here. And if it's a bullet, we have our asteroids giving us 2 new asteroids, and all these are going to cause a score to happen. So we just need to know how many points to score. Alright, so that means the asteroids are going to have to know how many points they're worth. So let's go up here to the top and make another variable here. So let's just make this a public int. We'll call this points. This is how many points this asteroid is worth. And let's make that points instead of point. And we'll actually set this out in the inspector like we did asteroid size and things like that. That way we can give each size of asteroid its own point value, and the prefab will save that information for us. So we'll put how many points it's worth. Okay. Then what we're going to have to do is we're going to have some way of telling the player that they've scored some points and to update his score. There's several ways we can do this. Probably one of the simplest ways is to use a command called SendMessage. And what SendMessage does is it just sends a message to a game object. So we're going to use the SendMessage way of doing this. So we need to know, we have to have a link to our player, our spaceship, so we can actually send a message to it. So that's another variable up at the top here. Alright, so we're going to make a public game object, and we'll call this the player. This will be a link to the player spaceship. Now if we have a link to the player, we can send him a message. So what we're going to do down here is after we've done all of this, before we destroy our asteroid, we didn't want to do that last because as soon as we do this, this script that's attached to it stops running. So before we destroy it, we got to make sure all instructions are run. So we're going to tell the player to score some points. So we're going to say player. So we're going to say player dot send message. Okay, so that says go to the player, which is that game object variable we just made, send him a message, and the message we want to send is going to be the name of a function that is contained in one of the scripts that the player has. Now, we don't have a function set up on the player yet to score points, but we'll go ahead and make a name up here for it, and then we'll build it here in a minute. So we're going to give the name of a function here. We'll call this score points. And then we can put a comma here, and we can send one value with the send message. So we can tell it, run this function, send it this value. The value we want to send it is how many points this asteroid is worth. And we just made a variable called points that's going to do that. So whenever we hit an asteroid, we're going to have the asteroid send a message to the player, and we're going to say, hey, run your score points method, and here's how many points I'm worth. Alright, so we'll save that. Now we have to write this function over there. So I'm actually just going to copy this so that I do it exactly the same spelling. If it's not capitalized and spelled exactly the same here as the function that is actually out of the player script, then it won't find it and you're going to get an error. So let's go over to the spaceship controls function here, or script, and let's go down here. I'm just going to kind of put this right here. And we want a void. We're not returning any values. I'm going to paste in the name, score points. Alright, now score points needs to be able to receive the points that I'm sending it. So we have to set up what's called an argument in here. So a place to capture that information. And that's going to be an integer. And this is going to be, we'll just call it points to add. Alright, so what happens is when this sends the message, it's going to send points, which is going to be an integer value of some sort. And then when it calls this function, score points, it's going to send that information, that integer, and we're going to store it in this variable called points to add. That'll become equal to however many points that asteroid was worth. Alright, now what we're going to do is we're going to say score plus equals points to add. If you're not familiar with this plus equals, that's just a shortcut for saying take whatever score is and add to it this amount and save it back in score. So it's the same as saying score equals score plus points to add. It's just a shortcut. Alright, so we're going to add those points to our score. That'll update our score. And that's all we should need to do to get some points coming in here. Alright, so we have our GameObject variable player here. Now, we can't assign that in the inspector because the asteroids are being spawned in from prefabs. So what I'm going to need to do is in the start function here, whenever an asteroid is created, I need the asteroid to go out and find the player and establish a link to him here. So we're going to somewhere in the start function here, it doesn't really matter where. So right here we'll go ahead and we'll just say find the player. And we're going to do that by using a command that's called GameObject.Find. And we can find things either by their name or by their type or by their tag. So I'm going to go ahead and find with a tag. So you see there's one on the list here that's called FindWithTag. And then we just have to tell it what the tag is that we want it to find. So we type that like this, and we're going to do capital P player. So we're going to find an object that's tagged with the player. And then what we're going to do is we're going to save that in this player variable. So we'll say player is equal to GameObject.Find with tag player. Alright, so that will allow us to store a copy of that. Now, all these GameObject.Find commands are kind of slow to run, so you really don't want to do it during runtime, but one time at the very beginning when you instantiate an object isn't going to add too much overhead, and that way we'll have this stored. Okay, so the only thing to make this work now is that we have to go and tag the player with the player tag. So let's save this. Let's go out into Unity. Let's go to my spaceship. Let's go up here to its tags, and I used capital P player because I knew that was a already set up tag in the Unity tag system here. So I'm just going to select capital P player here, and there we go. So now let's just test this out. When we start to run, this player variable here on the asteroid should fill in. So let's just check it. And there you go. See how it filled in with spaceship, and it's the spaceship that's in our scene. Now, The reason I didn't just drag it in here from the project panel is if you have an object out here in the hierarchy, or I'm sorry, if you have an object that's a prefab, so if you go to the prefab of this and you try to drag in something from the hierarchy, it's not going to let you do it. And that's because things in the hierarchy are temporary. This spaceship may or may not remain in the game all the time. And so the prefab has to know it's going to be there. So if we had a prefab spaceship, we could put it there, but then it wouldn't be the one that's actually out here in the scene. So it gets a bit confusing, but just know that if you're going to do something like we're doing here for instantiating things in, and they have to know about another object that's already out in the scene, that we have to actually just establish that link with code instead of drag and drop. And so one of the ways you can do that is the GameObject.Find object with tag. So that was working. Alright, so now we can go back to setting up the points. So an asteroid large here, let's say that asteroid large is maybe worth 10 points. So we'll put a 10 there, and since I'm applying it directly to the prefab here, I'm good to go. It should get all the ones that are out in the scene. Asteroid medium, let's say they're worth maybe 25 points, and asteroid small, let's make him maybe 50 points. And we can play with this some more as we go through to kind of get a good feel for points and all of that. Okay, so we've gotten points assigned to all of our asteroids. Again, the asteroid large, if I go out here, you notice it got the change because it's going to get whatever the prefab gets. Alright, so now if we click on the spaceship here, and we watch his score variable over here from we play, we should see that go up as we shoot the asteroid. So there's the asteroid. Let's get a little closer to him. Let's start shooting some bullets at him. Let's see if the score goes up when I hit him. Okay, so you notice I've got 60 points now because I hit the big one, and I think I hit the two medium ones already. And now I have small ones, so let's just see if we can hit that small one. There we go. Now my score is 110. So we are getting some points here now. Okay, so again, all we're doing is when we shoot one of these guys, it's sending a message to the player that it has been destroyed, and it's telling us how many points to add. Alright, easy enough. Okay, so let's go ahead and add in some lives to this. So we're going to want to go into our spaceship script. He's going to keep track of his score and also his lives. So let's make a public int for lives, and we could either set that here in the start function, or we can do it out in the inspector. We'll probably just do that in the inspector, then we can decide how many lives we want. So what happens now is whenever we get hit by an asteroid and we get hard enough that we should die, we want to take a life away. So here's what we had from the other day when we did collisions. We have an on-collision enter 2D function. This fires off whenever we hit something that has a collider on it that is not a trigger, like the asteroids. And what we were doing was we were looking to see what the relative velocity, how hard basically we collided. And we then set a check to see if how hard we hit it was greater than the amount of force that we thought would kill our spaceship. So we were debugging that, and then we were just saying death here if we went over that death force. So instead of saying death here now, we'll actually put in a spot where we lose lives. So let's go ahead and just say here that lives, and we want to take one life away whenever this happens, so we can use the shortcut -, which will just take one away from lives and store the result back in the lives variable. And that should see us having lives drop down. So let's check that out. So let's give ourselves some lives. Let's say 3. And then let's test this out and see what happens when I hit this asteroid. So let's get a feel for which way he's moving. Okay, he's going to come back over here somewhere, kind of right where we're sitting. So let's let him pop back over here eventually. Come on over. There he is. And let's just see what happens if I hit him. Now if I hit him relatively light, and I missed him because I was trying to hit him light, let's just kind of catch up to him here. Here we go. Okay, I hit him at a 1.9, and that wasn't enough for me to die because I'd set that at 2, I believe. So we got a hit, but that wasn't bigger than our death force, which is set to a 2. So let's hit him a little harder this time. Let's see if I can get aimed in on him. Boom. There we go. That was a 3.9. You notice my lives dropped to 2 over here. So it did take a life away when I hit him. And so that is working. Alright, so now we have a way for us to take some lives away. Alright, now after we take lives away, we do need to check to see if we have any lives left, because we need to know was that our last life or not. So right here, after I take a life away, let's just do a check here. We'll say if lives is less than or equal to 0, then we know that we have run out of lives. So this is going to be game over right here. I don't know why I've got question marks there. Let me change those back to the slashes like I was trying to do. Alright, so this is going to be our game over, and we'll have to institute a game over system here at some point. We probably won't do that in this video here, but we do have some lives and some points, and we now have the ability, and we know where we're going to put game over. Okay. So now that we have points and lives, so let's go ahead and get that on the screen. Let's try to do our UI here real quick, at least our basic UI setup for the game. Alright, so we are going to go out into Unity here, and let's design our UI real quick. So we want to put a canvas in here so we can display things on the screen. So we're going to go up here to the hierarchy, we're going to create UI canvas. Now the canvas will be drawn really huge off to the side. Don't let that fool you. This canvas is going to match the size of our screen when the game is playing. They just stick it over here so we have lots of room to work on it. The canvas, we're going to leave it as a screen space overlay. So we're just going to leave all that the same. We're going to right click on the canvas over here in the hierarchy, and we're going to say UI, and we want a couple of text. So let's put a text here. Let's call this our lives. And then this lives text box here, let's go ahead and put the lives, I have to zoom in out here a little bit. You can just grab it and drag it around here. We're going to put it up here in the top corner of our screen somewhere. So here it is, up kind of in the top left. Now with all UI elements, you want to set anchor points. So that's over here in the rect transform area. Right now it's anchored to the center. I'm going to click that to get the anchor presets. And I always want the lives just to tuck itself away up here in the upper left corner. So I'm going to select top left anchor point. You'll see the little anchor point, that little X there, that's the anchor point for this, is anchored there. So now if I scale the screen to different sizes, it will keep that text right up here in the corner as best as it can. Okay? So that's going to be our lives text. We got the anchor point set. And then here's where we can put in some text. Now we'll be updating this with our code, but we can put some placeholder in here just to see size and all that. So let's just put lives 3 in here for now, just to test that out. You'll notice it's hard to read because of the color and the size. So let's go down here to font size and try like maybe a 25. That might be okay. And we can change the color right here. So maybe we'll make it, I don't know, kind of a reddish color, or do we want to go more with a blue? Maybe a blue. I like this kind of electric blue look here. So let's go ahead and put that there. You can do all sorts of things with text here. I'm just going to keep this left aligned and tuck it right up there in the corner. Again, we can see what it looks like in full view. If I click in my game view window and I hold down shift and hit the space bar, I'll get full screen. So here's what it actually looks like in full screen, and I think that's plenty big for our player to be able to see it as they're playing the game. To go back, it's the shift space bar again. Alright, now we've got lives. Now we want another text box that's basically set up the same way for our score. So I'm going to click on lives and I'm going to duplicate this one. It's a pretty handy trick here. You can right click and hit duplicate. I will get an exact duplicate of the text box I just made right on top of where this one is. So it looks like there's still one, but they're stacked on top of each other. I can drag this one off, and then I can just kind of keep them lined up the same and put them over here in this corner. And then I can just change the name and any settings I want to, and I'm good to go. So this is going to be score. And then let's change the holder text in here to score. And then let's put like, I don't know, big number in here. So maybe a 6-digit number, just so we can make sure it's going to fit on the screen here. We don't want it to override off the edge of the screen. We also want to change this anchor point here. So remember, we don't want this anchored to the top left. We want it now to be anchored to the top right, because that's the corner I want it to stay in. So I'm going to change this anchor point over here. And now it will try to stay anchored right here on the side. I'm going to go ahead and leave it left justified or left aligned here because I checked to make sure. So as the score goes up, there's more room, and the S in score should stay right where it is. So that's what we're going to do for score and lives. All right, so the UI is set up out here in Unity. Now we just have to tie it in with some coding. All right, because what we want to do is anytime we lose a life or we get points, we want to go out here and update these boxes in our canvas. So let's go into our scripts. Again, the spaceship script currently is keeping track of score and lives, so we'll also have the spaceship script keep track of our UI. We could split this off into a whole nother script, but for now I think we'll just put it all together. So we're going to need a couple of more variables here. We need a variable to hold a link to the text boxes that are out on the screen. So we're going to need a public, and what we want is a public text, a text box. Now you'll notice that that did not show up here in my autocomplete. Okay, it doesn't know what text is. That's because we need to actually go up and tell it that we're using UI code here in this script. So we have to add another using up at the top. So I'm just going to go up here and say using Unity Engine .ui. Alright, if I say this at the top of my script, now Unity knows that I'm going to be using the UI system in the script, and it'll give me access to all the things that I need. So now if I start typing text in, you notice it pops right up. So I need a public text. We'll call this our score text. This will link to our score box for our score. And then we also want one, so a public text, lives text, and we'll hook that to our lives text box. Oops, yeah, that's what I want. So we'll go ahead and link these out in the inspector here, but that'll get us a link to those text boxes so we can update them. At the beginning of the game, after we set score to 0, we actually want to go ahead and update our text boxes, right? Because maybe we've started the game over again. We just want to make sure there's no garbage in there. That placeholder text I have out there will show up if I don't override it with something. So to change the value of the text in the text box, you give it the name that you set up. So, oops, score text. Oops, I really spelled that wrong, didn't I? Alright, so score text, and then we have to say dot text. Remember, score text refers to the whole entire text box. I want to affect just the text in the box. So I'm going to say dot text, and then I can set it equal to a string value. And what I want it to do, first of all, is say the word score and leave a space. And then I can add to that, so we're not actually doing math like numbers, we're actually just jamming bits of sentences and words together. So I'm going to put the literal word score with a space after it, and then at the end of that I want to put on the actual score. So I can put my score integer variable there like that. So it'll put the word score here, and at the beginning of the game, score is 0, it'll put a 0 there. Okay. We can also do the same thing for our lives. So lives text dot text. We're going to want that to say lives, put a space. Oops, I forgot to put my quotes around there. You need your quotes. Oh, come on. Lives and a space. And then we'll say plus lives. So that will cause it to update my UI to the beginning of the game to have the right score and lives. So that should be 0, that should be 3. Okay, so now anytime that we lose a life, we want to update our lives text. Anytime we add points, we want to update our score. So let's scroll on down and find where we're doing those things. So in score points is where our score changes. So the text on the screen will not change unless we tell it to. So anytime we adjust our points, like right here, after that line, we want to just do exactly what we did up above. We want to say score text dot text equals score and a space and then a plus sign and our score. Okay, we could have just even copied and pasted that down. So we add points, our score changes value, we go ahead and update that value right here to make it say what we want it to right here. Alright? Same thing for losing lives. Down here, every time we hit a life, we're taking one away from lives here. Let's go ahead and update the lives text. So lives text.text is going to equal lives with a space plus lives. Alright, and that will make sure that anytime there's a change in those two things, we're updating on the screen. So let's hit save and let's test this out and make sure that it's working. We do have to link in the text boxes to my spaceship, so I'm going to click on the spaceship. In the script here now you see we've got a place for score text and lives text. So we're just going to grab score and drop it in the score text, and we're going to grab the lives text box, drop it into lives text. Now there's a connection made so the script knows which boxes I'm talking about, and when I hit play we should see it say lives 3 score 0. There we go. And if I can get some points here, let's see if we can get some points. Here we go. There we go. See how my score updated to 10? And if I shoot more of these guys, I'll get that. Let's see if I can get hit here. And nope, I just grazed him. But if we run into something, we should lose a life here too. So let's see if I'm able to. There we go. See how I lost a life? My lives went down to 2. So it looks like it's updating okay. If I shoot these guys, I'll get more points. So anytime I score points or lose lives, I now have that updating to the screen. Alright, I think that's enough for this installment of our tutorial series here. We did quite a bit actually. We added in points, score values, and added points into our rocks here. And we figured out some lives and how to take away lives and update some UI on the screen. So as always, thank you for watching. I hope you're enjoying these videos as much as I'm enjoying making them. If you have any questions or comments or ideas, things that you'd like me to do or show you how to do in a game like this, please leave in the comments below. I'd definitely take a look at those. Next video, we will start looking at adding in some sound effects and some particle effects and things like that to jazz our game up a bit. We also need to look at how we win a level or how we lose the game. So a few more things to do here in our game before we're done. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.